Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. What is poppin'? My microphone is falling off. Let's make sure this stays on. It's Thursday, September 12th, 2019. Thursday Night Football Week 2 starts tonight. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon, as always, right across from me.
What it do, baby?
Third episode of the week, final episode of the week. We have some content coming at you on Friday. Don't remember what it is, but be aware there's an article coming. We have our breakdown of Week 2 today. The rest of Week 2. We did half of Week 2 yesterday. Today we're going to talk about the last 8 matchups of the week, including Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football. And we're also going to give you our starts and sits of the week. Before we get into the news, let's go over the pleasantries, I guess.
Okay. How you doing, boss?
He says, okay, how you doing, boss? Check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter at @theFFChamps, Instagram at @thefantasychampions, and Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasychampions. Subscribe wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Click the bell for notifications on YouTube and leave a comment down below. Leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. What are you doing smirking at your phone right now?
I'm trying to work out. You know, in fantasy football, it's all about doing trades and waivers and starts and sits, okay? I'm just working on potential deals. That's all I'll say. And now you're smirking at your phone. So,
of course I'm blocking your trades. Do not steal David Montgomery from me.
I'm not.
He's like,
I'm not. Don't worry.
Let's move into the news. Quincy Enunwa will miss the remainder of the season with a neck injury. This only makes the Jamison Crowder pickup / having Robbie Anderson on your team a little bit more pleasing. Not that Jamison Crowder was going to get more targets, but
he wasn't.
Imagine if he averaged 17 targets a game.
Oh, Lord.
How many freaking targets is that? That's like 17 times 16. Mother of God. 272 targets. The league leader was like 176 last year.
Wow.
That pace cannot be kept up. Just so you
Or
know.
can it?
Or can it? Speaking Wednesday, Coach Sean McDermott said Frank Gore remains the Bills starter. No.
Wow. Who would have guessed?
He literally said the same thing.
We need a segment for Frank Gore, like, with a sword slicing like a dragon, and then the dragon is like young, talented running backs.
Yeah, he said the same thing last week, and Devin Singletary got the first snap of the game, which, you know, means you're the starter of the game, and then he also got 70% of the workload. So
yeah,
no one's being fooled there, Sean McDermott, including the team you're facing. Albert Wilson, calf injury, did not practice Wednesday. Keep an eye on Albert Wilson if you are a truther and you start him anywhere in your lineup, which I would not recommend. Antonio Brown, at the end of yesterday's show, we got news of Antonio Brown and his legal situation.
Yeah.
And so there has not been any kind of impending situation for Antonio Brown in terms of suspension or being on the commissioner's exempt list. He practiced Wednesday. Everyone released statements. This is a weird situation because nothing has happened yet. So that must mean that the NFL has something or somebody has something that would point in the direction that Antonio Brown didn't do anything. But like even you sent a video to us in our league group chat last night that Antonio Brown was in a DM chat like a couple weeks ago with some lady trying like
supposedly, I guess the trainer's friend.
Yeah.
I guess it's her friend, and then
was trying to get the cheddar.
Yeah, I guess she knows her, and she was DMing Antonio Brown like, oh, I have video of her saying that it's all just for money and it's not actually real and stuff.
Yeah.
And saying I can prove it. But, I mean, that's just a video on Twitter, so.
Yeah. it should be interesting. The fact
We'll
that
see
they
how it all
haven't,
plays out.
we'll see how it plays out. We might even get news as this show is going on. But Coach Matt Nagy said Trey Burton is day-to-day. Keep an eye on that situation. AJ Green is out of his walking boot and ran on a treadmill. John Roth Truthers just took a major L.
And we'll take a dub again when AJ Green eventually gets hurt after his first game.
You know what I just realized? So somebody in our league bought Marquise Brown for $40 of a waiver budget. $45 of waiver budget. Not only did somebody do that, but he also told me the day before that he claimed $45 on John Ross and $45 on Marquise Brown. He didn't tell me the number. He just told me he had the equal amount on both players, and he didn't want both of them, so he just tied them to one player to drop so that whoever he ended up getting is the guy he would get. So that means somebody paid more for John Ross.
Well, unless if his top priority was...
Oh, and it was a tie?
Yeah. That would go to... So confusing.
That's like overspending. But AJ Green ran on a treadmill today. Sterling Shepard is concussed and is not practicing right now. I keep an eye on that situation. Coach Zach Taylor said Joe Mixon remains day-to-day as well. Jordan Reed is still, after like 3 weeks, in concussion protocol. Chargers, this is sad news. Chargers tight end Hunter Henry suffered a tibia plateau fracture in his left knee.
Dude gets hurt all the time.
Initially, it was reported that he was going to be placed on season-ending IR, and now it's being reported that he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. I doubt that this injury is going to be done in 6 weeks.
Or even 4.
Very strongly, yeah, or even 4. But I very strongly doubt.
Yeah, he's probably out.
He's probably out at least like 10 weeks. I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't sound like something that you come back from in 6 weeks.
I'm not a doctor, but is a good sign for Chargers fan listening to this.
Yes. Kiki Kuti returned to practice Wednesday. He was inactive on, was it Monday night's game? Cowboys coach Jason Garrett said the team will be mindful of how little practice time Ezekiel Elliott had this summer. I read the whole thing, and they basically said that there's a possibility it could be like a 60 to 65, 45-35 split with Tony Pollard.
All Zeke owners.
Yeah.
Are very angry at Jason Garrett.
I'm not really a huge fan of Jason Garrett. Chargers coach Anthony Lynn said he's absolutely concerned about Mike Williams' week 2 availability.
He is concerned?
He is concerned. Now, without Hunter Henry, Mike Williams becomes a great value. But if Mike Williams is not in the game, Keenan Allen is about to get like 50.
If Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, and Melvin Gordon all don't play, Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen will combine for about 30 targets.
No, it's true. I also wanted to note, this is actually not in our notes, but you brought up Melvin Gordon. It has been so quiet on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, that's very sad for me since he's on my team.
Like, there's not even good reports or bad reports coming out. There's just nothing, which means that there's nothing to report, which means that he's probably not coming back for like 8 weeks.
Yeah, which is bad.
That's all the news we have for you. Let's move into our Week 2 matchups, Part 2. We'll start off with the Seahawks. The Seahawks at the Steelers.
Okay.
They are at 1 o'clock, and it's a 45.5 point over-under, I believe. As of
that's kind of low, actually, I think.
46.5, forgive me.
Okay.
Still kind of low. I think that people are reacting to the... Vegas's numbers are more informed than most, but I think people are reacting to how Pittsburgh played against New England and if their offense is bad. And we all know that, the Seahawks like to run the football like nobody's business.
That's true.
But it should be interesting to see how that kind of turns out. Russell Wilson, would you start him against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I would. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 option this week, but I think he'll be a top 10 option.
Yeah, if you're in a league that is deeper at the quarterback position, I would definitely start him. I have a league where there's like 7 to 8 bench spots. So there's literally no one left on the waiver wire. So if you own him and you don't like your matchup, then I would start him. I think it depends on who else you have.
Yeah, like where would you? I mean, I know we haven't looked. We're done this yet, but where would you rank Russell Wilson among quarterbacks this week?
This week?
Yeah.
Oh Lord, I don't know. I have rankings. I don't remember where I ranked them. I was gonna say Would you start him over Matt Ryan?
Not this week, no.
Not Matt Ryan's facing Minnesota.
Matt Ryan is facing...
Oh, Philly. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Forgive me. I was reading the wrong numbers. Would you start him over Kyler Murray?
Yes.
Okay. Would you start him over Aaron Rodgers? He's facing Minnesota this week.
I actually would, yeah.
Would you start him over Drew Brees?
Yes.
Would you start? I would start him over Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would pretty much start him over everyone except for Mahomes, Watson, Rodgers, Ryan, Wentz. Would you start him over Mayfield? Mayfield's facing the Jets.
After last week, yeah, probably.
I don't.
That's close, though.
A lot of people are giving up on Mayfield.
I'm not giving up on him, but he has to play good for me to be, like... If I have an option like Russell Wilson on my team...
Right.
If I've invested Mayfield like he's the only guy, then yeah, of course. I mean, I have to ride with him, but
right.
I am a little cautious after week 1. I think he'll still be fine.
Right.
But again, if I have an option like Wilson, I'll just go with Russell Wilson for this short time being.
Right. So last week we saw 6 attempts go to Rashad Penny. He is not even close to a... When do you get to the point where you realize that Chris Carson is the main starter here and Rashad Penny's the backup and you drop Penny?
Carson had 15 carries to Penny's 6.
Yeah.
So it's clear Carson's a starter, but it's not like it's 20-4.
Is he worth... To me...
No, he's not worth the roster spot. That's what you're getting to.
What I was going to ask is there's 2. I don't know if we talk about the Denver Broncos on this episode, but... Rashad Penny and Royce Freeman, to me, are the clear... Well, Royce Freeman actually got a little more work on Monday Night Football than we anticipated. But yes. Rashad Penny is the clear backup to Chris Carson. So for me, it's like, I'm not telling you... Like, if you were on the waiver wire this week and you desperately needed somebody to drop, I would probably drop Penny. And you don't want to give up on a player too fast, but with him being the clear number 2 guy, it's hard to...
early on, like late July and stuff, I was high on Penny. Because I kind of thought it would be a little bit more of a slip. But as the years played on, now week 1 has gone by, right. I'm down on Penny, I don't think. I think Chris Carson is clearly the guy that they want to go with now.
Now, Lockett continues to be...
Tyler Lockett, man.
He continues to be the most efficient wide receiver in the NFL. And he got 1 reception, one target for 1 reception for 44 yards, and it happened to be a touchdown.
He had 1 ball.
That is like the fakest finish in fantasy football that I've ever seen.
Is so it many fake people if it's Tyler Lockett?
No, it's not. It's literally like, how long can this continue? I heard somebody say
his whole career. Apparently,
apparently, I heard somebody say this. They're like, Tyler Lockett. Everyone questions his efficiency and how long can he actually stay good. And then they were just like, maybe it's just Russell Wilson's efficiency and how well he throws the ball to... I just don't get
Tyler Lockett.
I don't get it.
Maybe Tyler Lockett's open on every play, but Russell Wilson secretly hates him. So he only throws it to him like once or twice.
Yeah.
But he scores.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would start Lockett this week. Just it is... I wouldn't want to start a guy. It's like... A lot of people are going to be like, oh, I want to start Lockett. It's similar to a situation, and I don't know if we talk about this later, but it's a similar situation to Corey Davis. Like, why would you start Corey Davis? I mean, and he's like the second option probably in Tennessee, but he had no targets. Yeah, he had 1 target. Tyler Lockett had 1 target. So why would you start a guy that had 1 target?
Because that 1 target ends up being a 40-yard touchdown.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say.
No, I mean,
it's like the equivalent of saying, "Oh, I think Corey Davis is gonna be good this week. I'm just gonna start him because."
I wouldn't want to start Tyler Lockett this week, even though he does have a relatively decent matchup, just because of that 1 target. But like, it's similar to a lot of situations that we go through and look at guys. It really depends who else is on your team.
Right.
Like Tyler Lockett, I don't think is going to be a WR1 this week, and I don't think he's going to be. I think he'll probably be like a low-end WR2.
It just surprises me how little how little receiving options they have on their team, yet...
How many times did Wilson even throw the ball?
I don't know. That's a great question. He had... It doesn't even tell me on this app, but he had 4 receptions to DK Metcalf and 1 reception to Lockett.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like he threw the ball a lot then.
Yeah.
He had 20 pass attempts.
Yeah, no, that's...
So, and he completed 14 of them.
They gave him like the bag and then...
Chris Carson had 6 receptions.
Yep.
So
He actually looked
so 16 of the 14.
He looked bad on the ground, 15 for 46. Like, he didn't look that great on the ground. It's like 3.6 yards to carry or something like that.
In the passing game, so.
But in the passing game, they utilized him. So that's one thing I will say. Last week, when you saw Chris Carson play, you saw him get 21 half PPR fantasy points. And a lot of people freaked out and panicked. But I think it was an insane amount of work in the passing game that got him to the point where he was at 21 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Because if you take away the receiving metrics, he only hits 10 or 11. So obviously the receptions boosted it and helped him up in terms of his performance. So I like to look at mirages with players and figure out, okay, he had the workload, yes, but how many, what happened in the game to kind of make him score 21 fantasy points? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like last year, I was wrong about this one, but first game for Saquon Barkley, he looked like trash. It was 2.7 yards a carry, absolute garbage. And then one play, runs it for 60 yards and a touchdown. And he got 16 fantasy points that game or something like that.
Yeah.
And he ended up looking really good. And obviously, you know what happened with Saquon Barkley last year, but it's just
I get your point, though. Yeah.
Just don't always look in between the statistics instead of just saying, oh, yeah, 21 fantasy points. I'm going to start him this week. I think that's all we have for the Seahawks, at least. Big Ben going up against the Seattle Seahawks defense and pass rush. It's another difficult game for him.
Yeah, I'm not starting Big Ben.
Yeah, don't start Big Ben. He might be if he's on your waiver wire, don't pick him up.
He's gonna be better, I think, than last week, but not worth the start.
James Conner is a must start. Stick with him. One interesting note that I wanted to talk about with the Steelers and the Seahawks is the fact that with the Steelers is that James Conner had 47% of the workload, and I believe Jalen Samuels had 39% of the workload. So weird. It's weird how all that worked out. But
Connor did have 10 carries to Jalen Samuels too, right?
Yeah, Jalen Samuels was used on passing downs, which is not good for Connor at all.
No.
Juju, just keep an eye on that. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think he's a must start. He's your number one wide receiver.
Yep.
Don't bench him until you know he sucks. There are going to be people who are going to be like, do I start Juju? He had a bad week. Okay. Don't bench Juju. Keep an eye on Moncrief, Washington. Should be interesting to see how they distribute that. I think Moncrief had 3 receptions and Washington had 2. Moncrief had 3 receptions for 7 yards. Washington had 2 receptions for 51 yards.
Oh.
So
I think Washington will probably be the better of the 2 options, but I'm not starting either.
Yeah. The 49ers at the Bengals at 1 o'clock, 45-point over-under. I don't know. This should be an interesting game.
Yeah.
It's kind of a low over-under.
What was the over-under?
45, 49ers, Bengals. I mean, I guess both offenses completely freaking low.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, that's a bad over-under. I'm like, oh, wait, never mind. The 49ers aren't good at football. The offense was so bad last week for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I really wanted to make Garoppolo my start the week last week.
Oh, boy.
But
yeah. You're still sweating over Garoppolo.
I know.
I like Garoppolo. I think he's he's a game managing winning quarterback similar to Nick Foles, but I just don't everyone wants him to be this fantasy relevant quarterback. He's just not.
Maybe if you gave him a star receiver or something, but with Marquise Goodwin
holding on to hope.
Deebo Samuel, probably not.
Matt Breida
is a start this week, I think.
Yeah, against Cincinnati, and with no
Tevin Coleman out.
No Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, especially in PPR settings because he's going to get the ball in the passing game, and he had 15 carries last week. I could see him doing the same thing, getting 15 carries and then getting 4 or 5 catches in the passing game as well.
Yeah.
Do not start Jimmy Garoppolo. As much as
I
want to.
I was going to just say, Dante Pettis, he had, I think it was 2 targets and 1 reception in the game.
He didn't play the full game, though.
No, he didn't play the full game, but it's not even just that he came out. Have you not heard the stuff around him during camp?
No, I have. I know.
That he's had to earn his job. That is a little concerning.
Yeah, no, nothing from Pettis has sounded good, but I know this past week he was. I want to say he was injured. Kyle Shanahan commented on it I don't know what the exact comment was. I want to pull it up real quick. So give me a minute to find that.
Yeah. George Kittle is obviously a start. He had 8 receptions, 54 yards. You're probably thinking in a half PPR setting, he had 9 fantasy points. So I would say stick with George Kittle. Don't panic. You're in a standard league. You probably had 5. So it's like, don't panic on George Kittle. Start him this week. See what happens. He's got a good matchup against Cincinnati. I don't think even anybody owns Marquise Goodwin. Deebo Samuel did look good, but it'd be interesting to see how that goes.
The quote for Pettis was from Kyle Shanahan. He said he just got cleared to come back on Monday, so he was a little behind the 8 ball on that. He said hopefully he'll work off that and continue to earn some more time out there. So
the fact that he had as good a season as he did last year and as much talent as he did, and he's not getting any time is... Like, the 49ers are playing too many games, and they can't afford to continue to lose.
Like, they won, bro.
No, I know they won. I'm just saying, they got lucky, and now they think they're the crap.
No, I know. So Brady's a start, and George Kittle's obviously a start. Is that it for 49ers?
I'm not starting anyone else.
And then for the Bengals, if Joe Mixon does not play, is Bernard a start? I would say in half PPR and PPR, yes. Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
I talked about this before on our waiver show, though. If Joe Mixon doesn't play, I would pick up Giovanni Bernard. But, like,
I think
Joe Mixon
will play, though.
Joe Mixon. What, Joe Mixon?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Mixon can't. He had trouble running behind a bad offensive line, and he's the more talented of the two backs. So what makes you think that Giovanni Bernard's going to go in and...
Oh, I don't. But if you give Bernard 14 carries and he only gets like 35 to 40, he gets like 14 carries and 40 yards, or 15 carries and 40 yards.
Okay.
You add the 40 yards to what he's going to do in the passing game too.
It's not worth a
and
start.
A potential touchdown, I think it is. In a half PPR it is, not in a standard.
I don't think it's worth it. Tyler Boyd, 8 receptions, 60 yards last game. He's a must start for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Against the 49ers, yeah.
I would say he's definitely a start too. What about John Ross?
No. Well, yes.
I would say yes too.
Yeah, I would start him.
For as long as AJ Green
John
is
Ross,
out.
I talked about this before. If you picked up John Ross, as long as AJ Green is out, he should probably start for the time being. If you have Tyler Boyd and John Ross, don't start him. The thing about this offense is that it's very similar to Sean McVay's, so you're going to see Tyler Boyd and John Ross come into this game.
He does like to use,
and he's going to utilize multiple wide receivers. Yeah. So, and Tyler Eifert, 5 receptions, 27 yards, not a start. Just keep him away from your starting lineup.
He actually did better than I thought though with the 5 catches, but
he really did. The next game, Vikings at Packers, 44-point over/under. The Vikings...
This will be a defensive battle, actually, I think.
Yeah, a little bit of a defensive battle. It is concerning for the Packers because they come off a week where they face maybe the best defense in the NFL to face maybe the second best defense in the NFL. So guys like Aaron Jones, guys like Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison didn't even get a start. Or didn't even get a target, did he?
No,
in the last game. But guys like that are going to go into the game, and they're going to have I think they're not going to have as much trouble as they did against Chicago, but I still think it's going to be a tough match.
I don't think they're scoring 30, though, either. I think it's better than it was Chicago because I think the Vikings defense isn't as good as Chicago, and it's in Green Bay.
Right.
But, I mean, as of right now, there's an 85% chance it's going to rain, so that's not looking good for passing game-wise. And I don't think, the Vikings defense is still very good. I don't see Green Bay scoring like 30-plus either.
Right.
So I still would be cautious. I mean, Devontae Adams is a must start no matter what still. I don't think he's going to get 5 fantasy points again in half PPR.
No, Devontae Adams is the only, have to start, must start.
Yeah.
Rodgers is a guy that you feel like you have to start. But
I would actually start Rodgers, but if you have a solid backup quarterback who's on a good matchup, if you had a Russell Wilson on your team as well, I would probably start Russell Wilson over Aaron Rodgers. But
all right,
I don't think he's going to be top 5 quarterback this week.
I'm just going to list ECR quarterbacks behind Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Would you start Mayfield over Rodgers?
No.
Would you start Ryan over Rodgers?
Yes.
Would you start Wentz over Rodgers? Carson Wentz against Atlanta.
Yes.
Cam Newton over Rodgers. Thursday
No.
night. Wilson over Rodgers.
Yes.
Goff over Rodgers.
Who's Goff playing? The Saints?
New Orleans, yeah.
No.
Winston, no. Yeah, and then it gets more difficult from there on, but
So
that's-
I'd have him,
you
I'd have him
got
like
him all
around
the
like
way.
7 to 10.
Yeah.
Like in that range. 7
Yeah.
to 9 for quarterbacks this week.
It's tough.
He has 2 bad matchups to start the season.
Yeah, and
so if you have
do you know who they're
Rodgers,
playing the following week?
Who?
Denver.
Yeah, but
Good
honestly,
Lord.
Denver's
It's
not
literally
good either,
the
but
first 5 weeks in
slowly
the
getting
season.
better.
First 5 weeks in the season. Chicago week 1, Minnesota week 2, Denver week 3, Dallas week 5. They even have Philly, who's not a bad defense either, in week 4.
Yeah.
That's
No
insane.
easy matchups.
Like, where did they had like one of the worst seasons last year, and they still ended up with this extremely difficult schedule. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to start up. Like, Rodgers has not shown since early last season that he is the same quarterback.
Other than
that
the
he has
last
been.
game of the season last year.
Other than the
against
last
Jets.
game where he scored like
Or
40.
Week 16, whatever it was.
But do you think Aaron Rodgers, really quickly, do you think Aaron Rodgers is becoming like matchup dependent, similar to Jared Goff, or
I don't think he's at Jared Goff's level.
yeah,
but
where Goff
no.
just poops his pants against
But
defensive opponents on the road?
He's not where he was like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
where
like he was a
just-
must start every single week.
Where he was like Mahomes or Watson
Right.
level. I don't think
The
he's...
concerning part is that if you spent a 6th or 7th round pick on Aaron Rodgers, then it's like you drafted him as like a top 5 quarterback. If you drafted him as a top 5 quarterback, you should probably be
he was
starting
drafted
him.
as like a top 3 quarterback. For
See, that's-
most leagues.
But now that you saw, like we even said kind of last week when we were talking about them against Chicago, we were like, if you can steer clear of this,
Yeah, we
this
did say
Bears
last week,
game,
yeah.
try to do it. And now you're doing the same thing against the Vikings. It's like,
Yeah, I mean,
when
but
do
again,
you start thinking is he matchup dependent? Because I'm starting to think he is. What did he do? 13 fantasy points last week
it was like 13
and a
15,
4-point
I think.
touchdown. It's getting harder and harder for me to see Aaron Rodgers as a weekly start. That is a hot take that somebody on our YouTube is just gonna roast me about.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not quite at that level yet, but I'm not far away from you either.
Right.
Like I think Rodgers is close to being
Like if he goes
matchup
out this
dependent.
week and he completely destroys the Vikings, then
Yeah, I think he'll have like I
Up
think
and
he'll
on.
get like around 20 fantasy points, but I don't think he's gonna like light it up. Like I don't think he's gonna have a 30-point fantasy week, but I think he'll do better than what he did in week 1, but
Right.
still not where you want him to be
right.
if you drafted him that high.
I think one thing for me to watch in this particular game is how Aaron Jones performs, because if you
That is
are
going
an
to be
Aaron,
really important.
if you are an Aaron Jones like owner, you're
panicking a little
You're
bit.
panicking a little bit because Jones had a really bad week 1. I think the panic, and I talked about this week, the panic around Jones in terms of his workload should not be there. You should be okay with his 15 whatever touches he had. I think if he had not come off the field for a drive because he was hurt, he probably would have gotten the
15
touches
carries,
that
yeah.
Williams got, and he would have been fine. So I think Jones's workload is not a concern. His efficiency is a concern, and one of the best run defenses in the NFL, probably the best run defense in the NFL, is who he faced last week. It's very, very difficult.
Doesn't get easier,
it
though.
doesn't get
Devontae
easier.
Freeman had 2 fantasy points in half PPR against the Vikings.
This
in
is
week
a
1.
game, if you're looking on the schedule as a Aaron Jones. All right, we'll start with as an Aaron Jones owner.
Okay.
Do you start Jones this week?
If I have a better option, I don't.
Okay. I was going to say, and then if you're not a Jones owner, you watch
Oh, I'm watching.
Aaron Jones collapse, and then you go
Trade it for him.
I know. You literally go to the team that has him and say, hey, you want to do a deal? Because he has the Packers and Aaron Jones specifically have the hardest schedule for running backs. And so,
Yeah.
and this first 5 weeks is the hardest section. Be aware, though, it's 14 weeks too early to start thinking about your fantasy championship. But and obviously things can change, like guys can get hurt and all that stuff. But the last 2 games, your playoff weeks, 15, 16, Aaron Jones plays once again Minnesota and Minnesota
Chicago?
and Chicago again.
Ooh,
So your
that's-
playoffs would basically be
That's not
destroyed by Aaron Jones. Now, if Aaron Jones gets on a roll of 20-point
good.
game,
And maybe
20-point game,
the
he might be
Bears
able
or
to
Vikings
produce.
are a different team in week 15, week 16.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen, but you keep an eye on that because I don't think if the Bears and the Vikings haven't changed defensively in a whole year, then nothing tells me that they're going to be any different anyway. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins was. This is a extremely concerning point if you are any owner, like if you're a Thielen owner, if you're a Diggs owner, if you're a Rudolph owner, not if you're a Cook owner. He's start Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins threw 10 passes last week. They
That's
went
actually
run
insane.
heavy. So Dalvin Cook is a must start. Like start him.
Oh, yeah. He's a. I mean,
To me, this year, the amount that they're going to give him the ball, if he stays healthy, he's a top 3 back. Easy.
top 3?
Yes, I 100% believe that. Week 1, he had 21.
Wait,
He had
It's a hot take,
21.
please.
He had 21 attempts, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns in week 1.
Top 3, though?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see this week because if he scores
I love
25
Dalvin
again,
Cook.
yeah,
You know I love Dalvin Cook, but top 3?
like he showed me in that first game. Like there was questions with injury, and then there was questions with efficiency for me when I was thinking about drafting him.
He
in the
was
second round.
fantastic in week 1.
He
I
was
will say that.
fantastic. So, like, I heard people saying this take before the season started that he was going to be a top 5 back, possibly top 3, and I was like, that's
A hot take.
a little hot. And then when I saw him in that preseason game in week 3, and when I saw him on Sunday, he just looks
He does look fantastic.
he looks on another level. He looks like a top 5 back.
That's fair.
So if works, but my only concern at this point is Dalvin Cook staying on the field, and not
Right.
getting hurt. If he does get hurt,
But
then obviously
again,
you're
we
screwed.
can say that about every player.
But if he does get hurt, Alexander Madison becomes a must grab in all formats because they're
He's
going
probably
to.
owned
He
his-
literally is going to get the same exact work. He had 9 attempts too, so it wasn't like he didn't
Yeah.
get work either. Anyway, my love for Dalvin Cook is over. Would you? The Green Bay Packers seem to have a much improved defense. It looks like Kirk Cousins is only going to throw 10 balls, so I wouldn't start Kirk Cousins. But I don't think they're going to throw 10 balls a game. I think it was just
No, they're not going to.
last game they went up 21-0, and it
The
was
game
just,
was over.
The game was
after
over.
The
First quarter.
Yeah.
They blew the team out, and they started running the ball the whole game.
Yeah,
That's
they just
kind of where it
controlled the
went.
clock
So I
at that
wouldn't be
point.
concerned about the amount Kirk Cousins throws. I think you could see 25 passes realistically.
Okay, yeah.
Especially against Green Bay, because if Aaron Rodgers is having a good day, then they're going to have to keep pace with that. They
Right,
can't keep
exactly,
giving the
yeah,
ball
yeah.
to Dalvin Cook the entire time and hope they keep pace with a high flying. I don't even know if that's what you want to call it for Green Bay, but anyway.
Right, but if Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers has a very good game, they're going to have to keep up with it.
Right. So it's Kirk Cousins, man. He was good and then he was bad and then he was good and then he was bad.
Yeah.
Now it's like if he doesn't get the work.
I like Kirk Cousins still, but
Yeah.
after watching week 1, it's like, oh, he's not going to throw the ball a lot this year.
Let's talk about the Chiefs and the Raiders over under 53 points. How many go to the Chiefs and how many go to the
50.
Raiders? 50 go to the
3.5.
All right, the Raiders are not the Raiders of last year, all right? You just
Okay.
back the truck up.
They're better than last year.
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
They go from 4 wins or whatever to 6 wins.
All right. They're 1-0 right now in the AFC West. Good
Yeah.
division battle. My God, if the Raiders win this game, I will rip my pants off.
If
and
the
run outside.
if the Raiders win, then I'm on board.
Okay.
But they got to win,
Obviously, Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs side is a must start.
of course.
378 yards, 3 touchdowns last game. He was absolutely spectacular as normal. I would say Damian Williams is a start in this game. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then Sammy Watkins in replace of Tyreek Hill. I think he's a start. I'm curious to see if the 198 and 3 touchdowns thing happens again.
Yeah, that probably won't not happen
Literally,
again.
all of 200 yards of Patrick Mahomes, 378,
That's wild.
and 3 touchdowns of Patrick Mahomes, 3 touchdowns, all went to Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. And then Travis Kelce didn't have the best week.
He should have had
so
touchdown, but Mahomes no look to the first row.
I'll basically say this. If you own a starter in the Chiefs offense,
You start him.
As far as the Raiders are concerned, is there anybody in this game that you are rolling on the ground about?
I mean, I wouldn't.
Josh Jacobs is obviously a starter.
Yeah, I mean, you start Josh Jacobs.
What about Tyrell Williams? 6 receptions, 105 touchdown.
I don't start him this week, probably.
You don't start him this week?
I'd hold off. If he has
It
another
was-
good week, though, for sure. But
I was going to say it was clear that he is the number one receiver.
he
there.
is, yeah. Same with Darren Waller. I don't start him this week.
If
but
you were a Hunter Renfrow truther,
I don't know many of those, but
there were a
continue.
lot of people on Twitter that were in love with Hunter Renfrow.
There's a lot of people on Twitter.
Yeah, that's true. Darren Waller is a must start this week. If you own 2 tight ends and one is better than Darren Waller, he's ranked higher, then start the guy over that. But if you own Darren Waller and you're sitting there looking at your waiver wire going, oh, who am I going to start at tight end? Start Darren Waller.
Start Darren Waller this week?
Yeah, against Kansas City's defense, yeah.
I don't know, boss.
Name a linebacker.
Okay, start Darren Waller. Fine.
Also, there is an interesting statistic I saw the other day. Darren Waller played a majority of his snaps when he was running routes at the tight end position from the slot. The slot receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs last week gave up 7 catches on 8 targets. So Darren Waller should be in your starting lineups this week.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next game. Saints at Rams, 53. Another 53-point over-under Sunday at 4
It's going to be the game of the week right here.
Yeah, dude. Drew Brees, would you start him against the Rams defense?
I actually wouldn't.
Okay.
Not this week. Not in LA.
Right. I would say Kamara obviously must start.
Yep.
Latavius Murray had 6 attempts, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara had 13 attempts, 97 yards in the game against Houston, which is basically what they did with Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
And
That's concerning.
not if you. I mean, if you're an Alvin Kamara owner, he's going to be a top 3 running back regardless. So I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah, that's true. Actually.
I'm just saying if you have Latavius Murray on your team, you're
It's
feeling
just-
good about the
it's just
43
something
yards
that,
and the
like,
touchdown.
One of the reasons I was so high on Kamara was because I was kind of hoping now that Ingram's gone, he was going to be the guy.
Yeah.
But they clearly want 2 running backs on that team.
It's not really a split. He is getting more work than he did with
But it's like Chris
Kamara.
Carson and
I just don't think they
Penny
want to give
kind of.
Mark Ingram as much work as they did the first 4 games of last year. Like, I think last year
or
they
you
were
mean
like...
Kamara?
Yeah, Kamara.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to give him... Like, the first 4 games of last year, they literally gave him all of the work offensively just because of the fact that he was...
Right, he's the only guy.
He was the only guy there, and they didn't bring anybody to replace him. Now they have their replacement in Latavius Murray. So I would, if you're an owner of Latavius Murray, I'm not starting him this week, but I would hold on to him and make sure, see where things go. Michael Thomas must start. Jared Cook was very disappointing in his outing. A lot of people, including myself, kind of thought Jared Cook. I didn't rank Jared Cook very high, but I think we had Jared Cook on our stardom list last week.
Yeah.
And he did not deliver. So
no, I'm not starting him.
yeah,
this
don't
week.
start Jared Cook.
Not
He's
until he
starting
proves
to.
himself.
I don't know if that's the week 1, because that was probably the Saints Texans game was probably the most. That looked like an NFL game. Everything else this weekend looked like a garbage can. Like you either were really good, like the Chiefs in Baltimore and New England, or you were just atrocious, like Miami.
Yeah.
Like
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I would say Goff is a start this week against the Saints defense. He's at home.
Yep.
This is what we talk about when you talk
We've
about
been talking
stacking.
about this since June with Jared Goff.
When you talk about what they call a QBBC, quarterback by committee, that is not for real life football. That is for fantasy football only. When you go quarterback by committee, Jared Goff should be on that list. Like if you want to go back and forth between guys, Jared Goff should be stacked with another quarterback, and you should find a guy who is decent on a week-to-week basis. So when Goff is not on the field, or when Goff is playing on the road, he's not an absolute garbage can and hurt your team. He had 186, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception in the last game on the road. So, and this week you're going to see Jared Goff come in and he's going to throw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns again because that's what Goff does for some reason. Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown. I don't know if we talked about that this week. Snap share was 70% in favor of Todd Gurley. Normal. Right? I mean, before he got like 81%, so it was like a 10% decrease.
kind of what you expected.
Malcolm Brown just kind of took over the work at the goal line, which Gurley doesn't.
And the carries were almost even, 14-11.
But he looked good. I mean, Gurley was 14 for 97.
When Gurley was out there, he looked like Todd Gurley.
If Gurley had gotten the two red zone carries that Malcolm Brown scored on, he would have had a 20-plus point game, and everyone would have been like, "Oh,
why wasn't he a first-round pick?"
And all that stuff. If I'm a Gurley owner, I'm not concerned. I think as the season goes along, they'll start to give him a little more work. But I think they're just taking it easy early in the season and grinding it out until they get to the point where they actually need him to play. I think it's going to
kind of be like this all year, but he's like Malcolm Brown's not going to get the red zone.
I think it was also game script because it came to a point where Gurley was like running the football, but then they got in the red zone and they noticed that Brown was running better in the red zone than Gurley was. So they just started giving it to Brown in the red zone, and that's just kind of how it worked out. I don't know if that's going to be a concern. I don't know if anybody that owns Darrell Henderson and they drafted him. Some teams drafted in like early August and they drafted Darrell Henderson being like he's the number 2. This week proves exactly what I told you people is that Darrell Henderson is not the number 2 running back on that team. It's Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, I mean
he looked awful in the preseason too. Like when I watched the games, Darrell Henderson, he looked bad. He did not look good at all. If he can't win against backups, what makes you think he can win against starters? Like I don't know. I don't understand it. Let's play Rams roulette for the week. Throw your dart at one target. Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, or Cooper Kupp.
I think the safe bet is Robert Woods.
You have all 3, and you can only start one.
What a terrible fantasy team you have. Sorry if somebody has.
All 3.
I'd go Robert Woods.
Is there any world where you could have drafted all 3? That's the real question.
Actually.
Yeah. I would say Robert Woods.
I'd kind of have the same order as it was last week. I'd go Woods, Kupp, Cooks. Although in a game like this primetime matchup, you could see Cooks, who had a very bad week last week, but
rebound and have a decent week.
Yeah.
I would say Robert Woods just because he got a majority of the target share. Kupp is easing his way back in, but he got 7 receptions. It just goes to show you this is exactly what my concern was. Is that Brandon Cooks always ends as a wide receiver 2 for some reason, but he is a streaking receiver on the outside. He's a good route runner, but he doesn't do what Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp do. And so he's not going to get targeted 10, 11 times. He's going to get targeted like 5 or 6 times. He's probably pulling 3 or 4 balls, but every once in a while one will go
like
for
an
like
80-yard touchdown,
60-yard touchdown pass, and all of a sudden you're having a good fantasy week. And that a lot of times happened more often than not with Cooks in the last couple of years. He had 2 receptions for 39 yards and no touchdowns. And so I think there's boom potential at home for Cooks, and I think there's bust potential on the road
honestly,
for Cooks.
And I've been down on Cooks. He was one of my busts all year. Mm-hmm. But if he's going to have a good week, I think this could be one of the weeks to do it.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next matchup. Bears at Broncos. 40-point over-under. Lowest scoring game of the week projected. That is gross.
Not surprising.
That
honestly.
Is so
What is it?
Gross.
What was it again? 40, you said?
40 points.
Yeah. Would you bet the over?
I would probably... No. I don't even know.
I probably would just because it's so low.
So Trubisky,
like
David Montgomery, and the entire Bears offense kind of didn't perform well, with the exception of Allen Robinson.
Yep.
Did not perform well last week. Trubisky's got to be better. He's got to be better through in every level of the game in order to even think about in the NFL as a quarterback that wants to win. He's got to be better, but for your fantasy team, that is not somebody you want to start. So a lot of people truth on Trubisky coming into the year. He's a boomer bust guy. Good matchup, start him. Bad matchup, sit him. If you own Trubisky for some weird reason, you're holding out hope. Do not start him this week at Denver.
You're a Bears fan and
Denver.
Oh boy!
Like that, yeah. I would be afraid of that.
David Montgomery, your guy. You starting him this week?
No, I would start Tariq Cohen though.
Yes. Well, if you're in a PPR,
because they're gonna pass it. I would.
What about standard league?
Standard, no.
But if you're in PPR, half PPR.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, because last week he came down with I think it was like 13 fantasy points in a half PPR format,
and he didn't have a single carry.
Yeah. David Montgomery is going to be. This is what's going to happen. You're if you do not study snap percentages and like the amount of they use David Montgomery, I would not start Monty this week. Stay away from starting him.
Your favorite player in the league.
I love you, David Montgomery. You have to play the long game. At some point this season, David Montgomery will be the lead back in this offense. He'll get 70%.
Just be patient.
Be patient with it, and you don't jump the gun and start him. 6 for 18. He had 7 touches for I think it was 50 yards or something like that, 40 yards.
Yeah, he had the one big 30-yard catch.
Right, but it's just play the long game with Monty. Don't start him this week. You'll probably have better options. With we've talked about it before with running backs, opportunity plus efficiency equals production, right?
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity is not there right now for David Montgomery. So if the opportunity is not there, he's not startable. Until you see that switch, and I'll let you know next week if the switch has been hit, it's not worth the risk. I'm not saying don't start Monty because he's going to have a bad game. I'm saying don't start Monty because you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know how the Bears are going to use him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like uncertainty breeds losses in fantasy football.
Do you start Allen Robinson?
I actually really like Allen Robinson. I'm more curious to see how Allen Robinson and Trey Burton coexist, because last week Allen Robinson was the target. Him and Tariq Cohen were the targets.
Correct.
Allen Robinson now has Trey Burton and Tariq Cohen to compete with. Do they target him 13 times again?
No, I don't think so.
I really like Allen Robinson, and he's some of the catches.
He's very good.
Some of those catches in the Thursday night football game were just
very impressive,
spectacular.
In week 1,
yeah, they were very impressive. But is this what we can expect?
I wouldn't start him in week 2 with another tough matchup and just seeing how he coexists with everybody. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with you that I do like Robinson.
Yeah.
And I think in the long run he'll actually probably be a WR2. So
yeah. As far as Burton is concerned, he does have a relatively decent matchup against the Broncos. If there's one thing the Broncos defense struggles with, it's against tight ends for some reason. Last week, Darren Waller, 7 receptions for 70 yards. Didn't catch a touchdown, but didn't really need to.
Yeah.
So I like Trey Burton. I think he's a good start this week. If you have other options, I would be a little cautious with him because he is hurt. Keep an eye on the inactive list, and if he doesn't play again this week, obviously don't start him.
Right.
I think people are going to be like, I set my lineups on Thursday when I listened to your podcast. Yeah. Always be aware. Joe Flacco, trash bag. Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman split the work. 11 carries for Lindsay. He did get a little bit more work than Freeman in the passing game, but it was basically 11 attempts for Lindsay, 10 attempts for Freeman. Freeman looked more efficient on the ground attempts, 10 attempts for 56 yards, and Phillip Lindsay had 11 for 43. So this is what you're going to look like all season. If you started Phillip Lindsay last week, he burned you. This is what you're going to get. I'm not starting Royce Freeman. I'm not starting Phillip Lindsay. Stay away from that situation until somebody
gets resolved.
Somebody works it out.
Yeah.
Courtland Sutton, 7 receptions, 120 yards.
Very good game.
Very good game. Do you expect an increase in... Not an increase, but do you expect this to happen again, or is this just like a flash?
I don't know if it's a flash because
we liked Courtland Sutton throughout the offseason.
I think he's a good vertical threat, and he's kind of the receiver that Joe Flacco likes. This week against the Bears, though, I'm not starting him at all.
Right.
Same with Emmanuel Sanders.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't start anybody.
I'm not starting a single Bears player. Broncos player.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Let's move on to our next game. Eagles at Falcons, Sunday, 8 o'clock, 50-point over-under. That's a good game.
I think it might be over. I think it's going to be a high-scoring.
Over?
Game, yeah.
You like that, the Falcons' 13-point offense over here.
I do, actually. Well, everybody hates them.
Yeah.
That's the perfect time to like them.
Yeah, Carson Wentz had 313 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wentz is back. MVP form.
You love him.
I love Carson Wentz.
I like him too.
A very good week last week. Atlanta Falcons, for every year they don't build the defense, so they're just like Oh, we got to do defense. Never mind.
They draft a few guys.
It's like me on
and
Madden. I trade my entire defense for offensive players.
Yeah. They always simulate defense and play on the offense.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's the Falcons. I mean, even though supposedly they were supposed to get better this year on defense because the draft and they added a few pieces, but week 1 didn't turn out that way. Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz is a start, right?
Yeah.
Easily.
I would say easily.
Is Deshaun Jackson a start? Your guy, again, another your guy. You loved him all year.
8 receptions, 154 yards, targeted a lot. I don't think he scores another touchdown in this game, but I think it's reasonable that he gets 7 catches and like 90 yards. I don't want to project anything, but I think he's a startable option in your flex.
Okay.
I wouldn't start him as your wide receiver too, unless you're
desperate.
That desperate. I would rather have Alshon Jeffrey than Deshaun Jackson starting in the lineup. But,
okay.
And Zach Ertz must start. Don't worry about the bad game.
And Falcons, honestly, like Matt Ryan.
You just passed over Miles Sanders entirely.
Sorry,
you were just like,
so
screw you, Miles Sanders. The truthers were burned.
Yeah.
It looks like it's Miles Sanders' backfield at this point, but we'll see as the season goes along. I don't start Miles Sanders. Don't start Jordan Howard.
No.
What were you gonna say on the Atlanta Falcons? You were just like Miles Sanders. You blow and
everybody is down on the Falcons right now. They scored 12. They scored 12 total points. They had 1 trash time touchdown, so it was really like 1 score for them the entire game.
Right.
I think they're gonna bounce back this week. They are at home, right? Yes, they are at home. I think it's in Atlanta's atmosphere. They cannot have the game that they had this past week. I don't know if they're going to go off and score like 40 points or anything like that, but I do think they'll get high 20s, low 30s.
If Vegas is saying that it's going to be a 50 point over under, then I would say that it's a safe bet that it's going to be a 50 point over.
Yes.
Over under.
So for that reason, I like Matt Ryan this week. I like Devontae Freeman.
There'll be a lot of points to be scored in this game.
And I like Julio Jones this week.
Yep. What about Calvin Ridley?
For a flex, maybe.
Okay.
But not as your WRT.
And then Hoop, there it is. He's going in.
I would start Hooper this week too if you have a.
Yeah.
If you're weak at tight end.
If anybody doesn't know what that means.
Hoop, there it is.
Hoop, there it is.
So I like the Falcons this week.
Hoop, there
Devontae Freeman is the only
every
one
time
that
he
I'm
scores.
Hoop,
there it is.
Yeah, right. Freeman had 2 points last week.
Yeah, he was bad.
I don't know if he's gonna. I think if the Falcons get 3 touchdowns this game, it's probably gonna all be through the air.
Yeah,
likely.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how.
This is a game that you have to watch because if you drafted
important.
Freeman in the 3rd round, you got to start him. If
Freeman has a good game, then he's back to Devontae Freeman.
Back.
But if he has another game where he gets like 40 or 50 yards, no touchdowns, he's approaching you're panicking on him territory.
Browns at Jets, 45 point over under Monday Night Football. Baker Mayfield back in action. He was doing good. He was being what Baker was last year. 285 yards, 1 touchdown. They were losing, and they were putting a lot of it on Baker, but Baker looked good, and they got to the 4th quarter, and he threw 3 picks. Yeah. So his stat line, 285, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. I think the hype was... I think they're a good football team. I think they're they don't suck. I just think that they were saddled with all this hype. Now, did for some reason I did not expect this to happen. Going into this first game, there was an analyst on NFL Network that said this team was going to go undefeated.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, the hype was way too real. I was like, something's going to happen in the first 4 weeks of the season. They're just going to get beat around a little bit, and then they're going to be like, okay, we're a good football team.
Well, they're either gonna do that or go the other way.
I don't think so because there's far too much talent in this offense.
I agree
not
with
be
that.
Good. Your starting quarterback's Nick Chubb. Your starting wide receivers are Odell.
You said quarterback Nick Chubb.
I said running back.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I could have sworn you said quarterback.
Starting running back Nick Chubb. Starting quarterback Baker Mayfield. Odell Beckham. Jarvis Landry. David Njoku. Your offense is too high-powered to not do something. I think it was just a bad week. They came out. Baker did have a lot of reps in the preseason, though. He was pummeled into the ground. That offensive line blows.
Yeah, does that get better, though? Like, does that change?
No, but I don't think it's going to, like, catapult them down into a 6-win season. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think it's going to make them a bad offense. Like, guys like Odell Beckham, guys that you drafted in the top 5. Like, how many years has Odell Beckham had a bad quarterback and a bad offensive line? Like, forever.
His, like, whole career.
Yeah, so it's like he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think guys like Jarvis Landry probably going to take a hit. David Njoku did have a good week last week. 4 receptions, 37 yards. He's not going to do that again. The David Njoku owner is probably like, yes, 10 points. And then they slide him in their lineup for next week, and they're like, "Yeah, let's go." And then he gets like 3 fantasy points.
I mean, he could be the red zone option.
He could be the red zone option, but the thing is that
he's not going to get a lot of.
You have to go on probabilities. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like he's not going to catch 16 touchdowns. I mean, he might, but it's unlikely. Probably have Odell there, so if you have Baker against the Jets, I would sit him for a week and watch.
Okay.
See what happens. Even though, you know what? I don't even know if I want to sit him. Like, he's such a conundrum.
I would probably. He's similar to Rodgers, where if you have a better option, I would sit Mayfield just for this week. I overall agree with you. I think Mayfield.
It's not a bad matchup against the Jets.
No, I mean, yeah, the Jets have an improved defense. Like, I don't know if you watched the game, but. Their new linebacker, C.J. Mosley, who came over from the Ravens.
The Jets' defense is better, but they gave up a lot of points last week.
Yeah. 16 points.
Oh, 16?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And Jamal Adams
was thinking
is
of another
beast safety. He's one of the best safeties in football. So
yeah, no, the Jets' defense
they
is
have players. They have a lot of good players on defense.
This is Monday Night Football, though. It's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Likes the spotlight.
No, I agree. I think... Again, if you have a better option, go with the better option. But I'm not selling Mayfield yet. Like, I think he'll be fine.
It's going to be one of those.
I think he'll have a better week than he did last week.
Start this guy over Mayfield, right?
He's like a start him, sit him question type guy.
Yeah, it's going to be like start this guy over Mayfield, and then that guy plays Sunday, has a bad game, and then you're like, oh god, now I need Mayfield to be good.
Yeah,
because I started him, or that guy goes off. But Nick Chubb, obvious start. Odell Beckham, obvious start. I think if you have David Njoku, you probably got to slide him in for this week, unless you somehow ended up with David Njoku and Travis Kelce.
Mark Andrews or David Njoku?
Asking for David Njoku.
Oh, really?
Mark Andrews.
I'd say Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I would say Mark Andrews. Better matchup. Darnold, 175, 1 touchdown. It looks like the same freaking guy from last year.
Yeah.
Kind of pissed off about that.
Again, I don't know if you watched like every game this week, but did you watch the Bills-Jets one? Because I don't blame you if you didn't. But
yeah, I did.
Okay, so you saw how bad the Jets' offensive line was.
Yeah,
right?
they were
on every play that Darnold went back to throw. He was getting pressured. Like,
he was getting crushed.
Yeah, So that it was similar to the Browns actually, where he just had no time to throw the ball. So yeah, I could see. Well, I think he will improve statistically though than he did last year because his interceptions. I think he threw like 15 interceptions last year. I don't think he'll do that again this year. But maybe like I think he had 16 TDs or something like that. I could see like 20 to 25 touchdowns and like 10 interceptions.
I think he'll be a lot better this year. It's gonna be like a Carson Wentz, Jared Goff 30-year breakout type of thing. I don't know that this year is gonna be the year. He'll be a lot better this year, trust me. And for some reason, Adam Gase coached teams the first year always for some reason go 9-7. Le'Veon Bell, obviously must start. 17 carries, 60 yards. He had a bunch of catches as well.
Yeah,
he was utilized a lot in that offense. I was surprised when we're going into the season. The reason why I marked Bell as a bust.
Adam Gase offense
is because, well, A, Adam Gase offense, but B, it was the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers gave him the ball almost 400 times in the seasons that he was the number one running back in fantasy football. And I thought he might reach maybe 300, but that was going to be it. Right now, he's like kind of on pace for 350 touches this year. And if he does that, he's a top 5 running back. Like, and that sounds crazy to say, but he's
top 10
after
least.
4 weeks. Ask me what I think Le'Veon Bell's going to do because I can that'll give me more of a clearer picture.
I like Le'Veon Bell this week, honestly.
Jamison Crowder. Keep your eye on Jamison Crowder.
Love Jamison Crowder.
Don't start him this week.
17
unfortunately. don't start him this week. Keep him on your bench.
If you're in a PPR league?
You're starting him with the anticipation that he's going to get 14 targets, but I don't want to pick a guy up off the waiver wire and start him immediately unless he's John Ross.
John Ross.
Unless he's John Ross. But I don't want to start Jamison Crowder immediately because that might have just been I need a safety blanket. This defense is really good guy, and then he gets like 4 targets next week. Like you just don't know what Jamison Crowder is.
No, that's fair. But I don't think he's going to get 4 targets though. Like I think he'll get like about 10 targets a week.
Yeah, I mean I don't disagree. I just don't want to. I want to see it. Wait and see. It's a wait and see.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Fantasy football for me is always about wait and see.
And
sacrifice 1 week to see if the guy's actually decent.
Yeah. Browns have some good cornerbacks too. They held
do.
Corey Davis to 0 catches despite getting blown out. So,
yeah. Let's move into our starts and sits of the week. We'll go through this relatively quickly. My start of the week at the quarterback position is Jared Goff versus the New Orleans Saints. We talked about this earlier. Jared Goff at home.
yes,
He has Sean McVay talking in his ear. He's always way better. And the Saints defense is decent, middle of the pack, but not great.
they're much better at home too.
They're much better
and
at
Deshaun
home.
Watson torched him last week. Though.
So Jared Goff going into this week, I know it sounds like crazy after the game that Jared Goff had, and it's gross, and you're going to sit there and you're going to put him in your starting lineup. You're going to think, why? I think Jared Goff is going to have a really good week against the Saints this week at home. That's my reasoning because he only does well at home for some reason.
Yeah, and for me, my start at quarterback is Lamar Jackson. He had a fantastic week in week 1. He only played in the first half pretty much. And, even if you're not entirely sold on Lamar Jackson,
right,
he's got another great matchup in week 2 against the Cardinals. It's not as good as Miami because Miami is just terrible, but the Cardinals had a bottom 5 defense last year.
If you needed a second, the first 4 weeks of the season for Lamar are pretty easy, but
yes,
if you needed an easy game following up your big performance, this would be it.
Yeah,
the Arizona
and it's at home again. So, I mean, I love Lamar Jackson once again this week. I don't know if he's going to get 30 points.
You can't keep putting him on your start list.
Dude, when you have matchups like these, yeah, you can.
My starting running back of the week is Damian Williams versus Oakland. There's going to be a lot of passing. Tyreek Hill is not in the offense. Yes, that does affect Sammy Watkins. Yes, that does affect Travis Kelce, but I think it also means that Damian Williams is going to get more targets through the air. You can expect probably 15 to 20 fantasy points from Damian Williams this week. I think they'll utilize the running back in the passing game a lot. Damian Williams is one of my busts, but against Oakland, when you don't have Tyreek Hill,
solid matchup.
It's a good situation. So start Damian Williams.
My start this week is somebody who I actually haven't been high on lately, and it's Kerryon Johnson. I think Kerryon Johnson
he had an easy matchup last week, boss.
I know he did, but
so
he's going up against the Chargers, and you think that's
he pooped himself.
Pretty, yeah. I do. Listen, he's on my team right now, but I still won, so it doesn't matter.
He's like, I want to watch him on Sunday.
I do. That's the
you
only
can
reason
watch him regardless.
Here's why.
I'll tell you this. I had before you say why. I had like 5 tabs open for my bench.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was like watching.
The reason I say
bench
start
games.
Kerryon Johnson, there's a lot of panic from Kerryon Johnson fans.
Yep.
And Kerryon Johnson owners, including myself, where he didn't have the type of game one that you wanted him to against a bad defense.
Yep.
But don't panic and don't sit him because he is against the Chargers this week. That is a solid defense. However, last week Marlon Mack had 174 yards and a touchdown against the Chargers. Kerryon Johnson, if he's going to be Kerryon Johnson, this is a big.
This is the week.
Him.
Yeah.
If he has 2 bad weeks in a row to start the season, it's it's legitimate concerns. But I think he's not going to do that again this week. But I would start him. Don't panic. Don't sit him. Start Kerryon Johnson.
Start of the week at wide receiver, Robert Woods for me against New Orleans. I keep going with these Saints guys. I think Robert Woods, he's the main receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Cooper Kupp is still easing his way.
Rams. You said New Orleans.
It's because I have Saints written on my sheet. It's
okay.
For the Rams. He's the main receiver for the Rams. Wow. Cooper Kupp is easing his way back into it. He had 7 receptions last week, but he wasn't targeted as much as Robert Woods. Brandon Cooks is basically non-existent as far as targets are concerned. He will get targeted in this game, of course, but I think that out of the wide receivers for the Los Angeles Rams, there it is again, you have to go with Robert Woods.
Yeah, I mean, he's that guy that got the most targets. It makes a lot of sense. For
I
me,
just spoke Robert Woods into existence to New Orleans.
You did. Watch, next year he's going to be a Saint. For me, my start of the week at receiver is Sammy Watkins, similar to why you said Damian Williams.
Yeah.
With Tyreek Hill out, he's the number 1 receiver on that team. He had 9 catches for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. I don't see that happening.
Yep.
But against the Raiders, it's a relatively easy matchup for him to continue playing well.
Right.
He's still going to get a decent amount of targets. So I would start Sammy Watkins because I think Mahomes will still be Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs will score a lot.
My start of the week at tight end is Trey Burton against Denver. If you have Trey Burton, he was hurt last week. Hopefully he's in. Hopefully he's ready to go. I would start Trey Burton against Denver. I feel like, I don't know.
I don't know. That's why
he's got a good matchup.
No, he does. Broncos have a good defense, but they tend to struggle against tight ends.
I don't know. Tight ends are so unpredictable.
I know they kind of are.
I got Darren Waller right last week, I believe. So there's that.
All right. Well,
my tight end of the week, Trey Burton.
For me, it's Austin Hooper. What's interesting about Hooper, they got a very solid matchup against the Eagles, who got torched by Vernon Davis last week, another tight end. I know you love saying that, bro. I'm going to just keep talking, though. Austin Hooper this week, they used him a lot in motion. He led the team in receptions. Julio Jones had 6, but Austin Hooper had 9 for 77 yards.
Wow.
If he had a touchdown last week, we would have been talking about Austin Hooper in the same breath as Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson and these tight ends that kind of are at the bottom that were like ranked like 10 to 15 and ended up having top 3 finishes at tight end. So he was really good last week, and I think the Falcons offense as a whole is going to have a bounce back week. Yeah. So I could see Hooper having another good week, so I'd start at Austin Hooper.
We are overtime, so we're going to give you our sit, just one sit. You have to choose one sit of the week.
Can I just say the 4 and then just not give reason?
Sure, I'll do the same.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Quarterback Kyler Murray, don't start him. Running back Aaron Jones, don't start him. Yes, I know Aaron Jones. Will Fuller, don't start him. And O.J. Howard, don't start him.
I'll say...
even though I'm going to start him because he's playing national TV and I want to watch.
I'll say... oh, man. I'll say sit Drew Brees against the Rams.
Okay.
I'll say sit Phillip Lindsay against Chicago.
Yep.
I'll say sit Kenny Golladay against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Okay.
And Jimmy Graham against Minnesota.
All right.
Sit Jimmy Graham.
That's a good one. We'll say that now, and he's going to get 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, he'll straight get 3 touchdowns. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fantasy Champions podcast. Don't forget to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Lots of content, articles, materials, opinions to help form your opinion for week 2. See you next week. See you next Tuesday, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter at TheFFChamps.